Okay, we are live. Hi, everybody, and welcome to our weekly Technologies of the Future webinar with live Q&A and special guests. Today's topic is, it's actually been World Drowning Prevention Day this week, and so we thought we might talk about the convergence of technologies and how that can have an impact in the future. And I'm going to read a passage from The Future is Faster Than You Think. And just a short passage this morning on page 48 for those who like to look it up later. And it's actually in a chapter around robotics. Let's do this. For disaster relief and recovery and delivery of medical supplies, drones have been on the job for a while, and not just in Japan. They were in Haiti after the Hurricane Sandy in 2012, in the Philippines after Typhoon Haiyan in 2013, and in the Balkans for flooding, in China for an earthquake. They're faster than humans at spotting survivors in need of help. Boeing's heavy lifting drones can hoist a small car, so they're often better at providing that help. A company called Zipline uses them to deliver blood and medicine in both Rwanda and Tanzania. And since 50% of Africa lacks adequate roads, this development could significantly improve the quality of medical care on that continent. We're also seeing drones mitigating a different disaster, deforestation. We lose over 7 billion trees a year to timber harvesting, agricultural expansion, wildfire mining, road building, and all the rest. It's an environmental disaster of epic proportion, both a major cause of climate change and species extinction. Yet there are now tree planting drones that fire seed pod bullets into the ground, allowing a single drone to plant as many as 100,000 trees a day. Of course, we could go on like this for quite some time. Elder care, hospice care, infant care, pet care, personal assistants, avatars, autonomous cars, flying cars. The robots are coming. The robots are coming. The robots are here. But there's a forest through the trees. It's not just robots. It's the convergence of robots with other exponential technologies. It's an electric skin of sensors smashing against neural net-powered AIs in the cloud that are bashing into a growing swarm of deftly nimble and increasingly intelligent robots. And the stranger part of this story, as we'll see in the next chapter, it's merely half the story. And so I'm going to actually now just read a quick little about the drowning prevention. And this is from the United Nations website. And it says that every year an estimated 236,000 people drown, making drowning a major public health problem worldwide. It's one of the leading causes of death globally for children and young people aged 1 to 24 years. And the third leading cause of unintentional injury, accounting for 7% of all injury-related deaths. And I was looking up the stats. Actually, in Australia, there was a 30% rise in drowning experienced last summer here in Australia due to the excessive flooding in the country. And so it is a big topic to talk about this morning, and I'm going to invite online our experts this morning, my co-CEO, Christina Drakides, and looks like we've got Andrew with us today, and just check who else is going to join us. I think that might be it this morning. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
I'm going to ask you for a one-word opener. Christina.
I'm going with sunshine. It's beautiful outside.
Andrew?
I'm going with warm because it's cold outside in Melbourne.
I love it. I don't know what it's like outside here. It is nicely temperature controlled. I do love technology for that. I've got my morning coffee, and my word is energized. I've been up in meetings. I had one at 2:30 a.m. this morning. I had one at 7 a.m. this morning, and I am ready for the day. So let's get into the topic, the convergence of technology and disasters like drowning. What is the mindset, do you think? And I know in Australia, we do a lot of swimming lessons and we've got a huge focus on this, but I just didn't even think about floods as a huge challenge and the amount of drownings that we may have experienced from that this year. Any thoughts on the mindset?
Andrew?
Well, I was just thinking that looking at some of the stats around drowning in Australia, Royal Life Saving suggests that around 80% of drownings are males. Is there a difference in the mindset between how males approach swimming and water-related activities versus non-males? So
that from
yeah,
fishing, or is it from like this men do different sports? Because I know I do hear about fishing and deaths
yeah.
from drowning. It'd be interesting to see if that's a long-term stat and what.
Or was it just, yeah, the stats I've got up here are from 2021. So, you know, we can speculate a lot of things here, and it'd be good to see why there is a discrepancy there. You know, is it alcohol related as well? Is it risk-taking behavior?
There are a lot of fishermen swept off rocks despite repeated warnings. I think when we get into technology, there's a lot happening in that arena to enhance rescue. But on the prevention side, you're right, Lisa, we get taught how to swim at schools. There was a danger of that program being suspended or dropped. And then there was a bit of an outcry, actually, and as there should be, particularly for coastal people that live on the coast. There was also the outcry about the inequity around swimming lessons for children that live in regional areas and how there wasn't the same amount of funding that was distributed there. So I think that inequity is either being dealt with or has been dealt with, because a lot of the children in regional areas in inland Australia come and holiday on the coast. And I'm not sure about the male propensity for drowning, except maybe with the fishing and the sailing. But is there I don't know. I don't know what to say without saying sexist, like a false bravado around it's not going to get me, the maternal instinct with a female. I'm not sure what that might be. It'd be very much worthy of more conversation, consultation, investigation.
And actually it does say on the website, if you're a boatie or you like fishing or kayaking, you might want to get a new life jacket, which meets Australian standards. It does mention parents making sure their pools are secure, and then men out with their mates choose to leave the beer until well after they're done with the water, trailered the boat and got home with the day's catch. So staying on boats too long and simple things like that. So yeah, I do see there's probably some of those things in Australia. And I wonder about the contrast internationally. So reading the World Health Organization website, it was around, you know, just waterways in developing nations. And so there's a lot of different waterways in Brazil, for example, or in the Philippines. And whilst we say about the swimming training in regional areas in Australia, I think that we're well ahead of a lot of the rest of the world in swimming and swimming lessons. And so there's always that contrast of we can totally do things better in Australia, and then the gratitude of how good we have it compared to the rest of the world. And so if we move on to technology, some of the drone technologies and the things that we were researching about and that we've been talking about for a number of years is super cool. And Christina, I know that you've got a story that you often share about rescue helicopters as opposed to jetpacks and Jetman. Would you like to share that one?
Yeah, I would. It's not a happy story, but it's a very enlightening story. So I was at the beach. I'm very blessed to live close to the water. And there was a drowning. A young boy, 15 years old, got swept off the rocks in an unpatrolled area. I think that's the other thing. We're very fortunate in Australia. We have so many patrolled areas. His mates rang straight away. So that's something that would never have been available before technology. 20, 30 years ago, you wouldn't have had the direct line to be able to ring the surf house and say, hey, you know, we need help instantly. So there was that with the technology, just with a basic mobile phone. But I watched as the helicopter tried to lower. I believe that the young boy had actually passed by this stage, but I watched as the helicopter tried to lower and get close enough to pick him up out of the water, and it wasn't working because of the wind, because of the gusts, because they were very close to rocks. And I was thinking about our mate, the jetpack man, who and how there are first responders purchasing the jetpack in order to be able to get closer on rocks, because then you don't have the issues of the danger with the propeller, and you can actually get down further and be more steady. Actually, I found that quite surprising, that that the jetpack actually made you more secure and more steady than you were on your own 2 feet on land. So I think the propensity for these devices to enhance the whole life saving and to be able to get there faster. Just imagine if these jetpacks were actually on the coast rather than at a helicopter pad where you have to get the signal out and then get the helicopter in, but lots of things like that. And they're also using augmented reality, virtual reality for swimming lessons and awareness, which I think may make it a little more confronting for some of the fishermen and the boaters, perhaps, I hope.
I was just thinking about the jetpacks, and just for those who haven't seen them, it is a flying jetpack. So literally it's a jet suit that you wear, and it's quite stable. Christina and I were at an event, and Rocket Man, Jetpack Man flew in, and it was really noisy. And Christina describes it as like a lot of vacuum cleaners going all at the same time. And it smelled like petrol and fuel. So I think the advancements in those, I'd love to see one that's using like the Dyson technology that's not petrol, or a naturally powered jetpack in the future. But I think the concept of being able to fly in and do first response with a tool or a technology like that would be super cool. And those are selling for about 250,000 US. So anyone that's in first responding and has the opportunity to check those out, then please do that. So other technologies, Andrew,
Well, I think we've got 2 approaches. I mean, on these Friday calls, we often talk about wearables and other devices. And is there something preventative that we can, some sort of preventative tech to try and reduce the amount of people in a situation that need rescue? I think would be wonderful. But that's always the most challenging part.
We were talking the other day, this week, Andrew, you and I, and we were talking about visual recognition software. And so how do you actually utilize, let's say, for surf lifesaving in Australia, when you've got these patrolled beaches, and the patrolled beaches are patrolled by humans, and humans are out and they're watching, and we're trained in Australia to put our hand up if we need help. And I'm sure that there's a number of warning signs, and so someone might actually be drowning and they'll be watching, and the human eye that's trained to be able to see those warning signs would then be able to respond and then go out and rescue people. And if the human eye can be trained to do that, I believe so can visual recognition software, and be able to create alerts. And particularly if you think about the beaches that we have in Australia, and even late at night, that they're not patrolled. And so how do you actually have an alert system? And I had a story. I was living on Newcastle Beach in summer last year, year before last, and it was the first time my partner had met my family and all of my family over, and beautiful view of the beach. And actually, I don't think it was summer. I think it was very cold, and someone was drowning. And my partner sort of, he's trained, and he's looking, and he was definitely drowning. And the beach was actually closed, and people still go in and go swimming. And so he went down and he ran out and he rescued this person and came back. And, my family, first time of meeting this man, were like, wow, he's amazing. And I think about that, the trained eye, but it's, the beach was literally closed. So how can we put something like visual recognition software onto our beaches? I know that there are a number of cameras. You can log in and go to Surfwatch and check out what the surf's like. So the technology is already there. How do we utilize it now for that next level?
There's also Optus Buoy, which has the radar for sharks, that we could actually be sending beams up once the signals go off. But Andrew, to your point about wearables as well, a lot of people are wearing their technology into the water. What would an SOS system look like on your Apple Watch, or any other kind of device that you might be wearing? And also the wetsuits, having that technology within the wearables would make that if we could bounce the signal up, bounce it back to the stations as happens with Shark Boy, that would be quite remarkable as well. And but it just goes back to basic. I can't tell you how many times I've been at the beach and the signs have said, don't go in. It's rough. There's huge rips. If you're not a strong swimmer, do not go in. And the lifesavers, bless them, constantly have to go, get out of the water, get out of the, they're the ones that put their lives at risk. So I think this a more respectful approach to the ocean, which is what they have, going back to your point, Lisa, earlier, in the Mediterranean, like the difference between Australia and other places around the world. I know in the Mediterranean, because I've experienced firsthand, there is a huge respect for the water. It's also much more buoyant, and there are less waves on most coastal areas because, the Mediterranean's kind of enclosed. But there is a huge respect for water and the danger that it can bring. We don't seem to have that. We have this brash Aussiness, which is amazing, but we need to be very mindful of how we're approaching things like that.
So you mentioned a couple of things. One of them was the Apple Watch, and I know the Apple Watch is doing fall detection. And so if certain parameters are met, and then it can send alerts. I wonder as well, what that would look like in the water, because you don't know if someone's snorkeling or diving or whatnot. However, one of the wearables that I'm really excited about, which launched this week, I received the email, is with the Oura Ring. They're doing oxygen saturation levels. And so being able to understand your oxygen levels, because that's when you're actually going to need to send that alert. And I think, they're probably leaning that way, that, you put your emergency contact in there, and then if something's going wrong. However, if you are drowning or something, then you've got to get to someone pretty quickly as well. So, that's maybe, just imagine you might be drowning, it's the beach, you're out late at night and it's dark and you've done the wrong thing, you haven't used your common sense, you've gone for a swim a little bit too late, you've got into some trouble, you're drowning, nobody knows, but the ring picks it up. And then what then is triggered to be able to go, hey, someone needs help. The rescue team and the time to get a human there, but then to actually find someone in the dark could be quite challenging. So it's a drone. So a drone station, it gets set off, it gets the alert, the drone is sent out. It's an underwater drone as well. So it actually locates my Oura Ring. And then it's like one of those, those skill tester machines where you go in and you're like trying to get the claw to go down and collect like a teddy bear or something. So the drone comes in, it's like it spots, it dives into the water, it gets its little claws out, it picks you up, takes you to the nearest hospital, dumps you down in the emergency department. I don't know.
I've got terrible luck with those skill testers, so I hate to be on the receiving end. Keep dropping me.
We won't get you to program them, although, however, you could actually use your natural language processing to then, that drone could then comfort the person. So even though they might feel like a little rag doll, that you could be talking to the drone, and it would be understanding your language and saying, okay, you're all right. Maybe use the machine learning to understand like someone that you love or someone that you trust and care about their voice, would then take over the drone, and then it'd be like your mum saying, hey, it's okay, you're on your way to the hospital, everything's gonna be right, just breathe, just relax.
Exactly. Well, you raise another interesting point there. If a lot of the time people panic, and when people panic, they do silly things. Can tech and natural language and the understanding that we have of human behavior, can some tech help people avoid getting into that panic state, which might make them make rational decisions that will ultimately save their life?
And that's where I think the ability to send off your own SOS signal as well comes in handy. So if it's a button on a Rashi, or if it's if I can actually get to my watch, there've been cases already. There was a case in Melbourne of a woman who was wearing her husband's Apple Watch, irregular heartbeat. The watch said, hey, something's not right here. She went to the hospital. They took her to the hospital immediately. She did have a heart attack. The Apple Watch can't prevent you having a heart attack, but she had the heart attack at the hospital. where they were able to support what was going on, and she survived, whereas potentially she may not have elsewhere. So it's that awareness. So whether it's your ring or your watch that sets off a signal that says, hey, things aren't looking good, and then relays the signal to back to some kind of base. And that drone, we can only pick up 50 Ks at the moment, so we're going to actually have to send 2 or 3 drones or increase the capacity of a taxi drone to pick someone up. But it's all possible. All we need to do is imagine it, and everything is there. We just need to converge the different technologies, and also to constantly remind ourselves that prevention is better than cure. So education, awareness, simulations, we have so much capacity to prevent those 235,000 global deaths from drowning. It's really an exciting time for that, and let's avoid more tragedies.
So I'm going to ask about the impact and move into the next part of the conversation this morning. And there's a few different angles that I've been thinking about, and one's not so great. And I'd really love to go there first, because I think, like you say, with common sense, absolutely education is needed. However, what's the impact if you actually don't take as much care because the system is going to be a safety net and it's going to catch you? And I'll liken that to learning how to read a map. And I'm not sure how many 18-year-olds who have just got their driver's license, or 17-year-olds, would actually go through the same experience of having to get a map. And if I remember first getting my driver's license and driving from Newcastle to Sydney because I wanted to go to a theme park on the roller coasters, and I had to get out the map and I had to memorize which turns I needed to take and how to actually do that. And now I just don't even need to know anymore. Like, I can follow my GPS and literally put the wrong address in there and get to a location that's completely wrong, because that's the only human error that you can make in getting a map wrong. And so I'm going to overlay that with just another cheeky story. Is just after I'd had the kidney transplant. Actually, no, sorry, it was just before I was on kidney dialysis. And on kidney dialysis, you're not really allowed to drink water because fluid is bad for you. And I thought it would be a great idea to go in a triathlon, just to, prove that I can do anything. And so I'm down there and I'm getting ready, and it wasn't a full triathlon. It was the part triathlon, and I'm doing the run and everything. And everyone was super worried because I couldn't drink water. I was going to get dehydrated. And I just laughed and said, haha, you know what? It's pretty hard to die in Australia. They'll come and get me. And I was just like, I'm at this triathlon event. There's lots of medical staff there. If I'm dehydrated, literally they'll come, they'll pick me up off the ground, they'll hydrate me, they'll put me on a drip, and I'll be fine. And so I'm just sort of thinking about that in the future, of if we know that, the drones are going to save you, would more people swim at night, and then, sharks become a bigger problem, or there's always these second order consequences. So I'd love your thoughts on that. Christina's going to say, you silly girl for doing a triathlon.
I would love to be able to do a triathlon. Wow. Andrew, I'm going to throw to you first.
Yeah. I don't know. So you're quite right. There's a bunch of second order consequences. I think you'll see a bunch of kids wanting to trigger the claw to come and pick you up. It'll become a dare. Who can trigger the claw? And it's always
it's come in.
Yeah, exactly. And it's such a, it's so difficult, because you try and solve something, but are you then causing recklessness, which might make the numbers worse than the ones that you solve? Prevention tends to have a better effect, because there's that safety net's not really there. It's saying you have a choice to make, and we're going to help you make the safer choice. And so people tend to respond better to that preventative stuff, less recklessly. It's a tough one.
I totally agree, Andrew. And I think, how many times have I will bring this back to the personal, have I been dependent on my GPS, and particularly because I walk a lot, particularly when I'm in a big city and the signal gets blocked. And what happens then if I'm totally reliant on the technology, or if there's, there was a time, again, let's go back to the Mediterranean, a Greek island, there was a big storm, the power was out for 5 days, and everybody had been communicating on their mobile phones. Mobile phones ran out of charge. Nobody had landlines anymore. So there was nobody could communicate because of this reliance on technology. So I think you're spot on when you say we need that. Prevention is better than cure. Isn't it wonderful to have a possible safety net? But we need to prevent, all that energy that goes into the rescue, etc., the trauma. If we talk about the impact of some of these accidents is forever on some families, for example. So we need to do the prevention, because there's no guarantee that the technology is going to save us. Yes, we're in a much better position. Yes, wouldn't it be amazing to be, send Rocket Man out as soon as you can, as soon as you hit the signal, Rocket Man comes out to rescue you. But where are you? As you said before, Lisa, it's nighttime. You've already gone under, because drowning, the other thing with drowning that we often forget is after that initial panic stage, apparently, I know a couple of people that have almost drowned, and you go into this absolute euphoric stage. So at that point, you're not panicking, you're not sending out signals, you're in this euphoric stage. I've heard people, hearing the most amazing music, just floating around, having the most peaceful feelings. And they're, unfortunately, I know a few people that have nearly drowned who have shared those stories. So, spot on. Prevention is better than cure. How do we use technology to prevent that? Augmented reality, virtual reality, how do we do the training, even for swimming within that? And we take some of the fear, and I think we take some of the brashness out of the approach to water. And if you're going to fish, then know everything about the rocks and the tides and be learned and educated.
I think we'll see a rise in the future of survival training as cool things to do. It might be weekend retreats or a week retreat where you actually need to go and learn how to survive without power or without technology and without devices. And maybe that might be a really cool thing for schools to be able to do camps on navigation without their phones and all sorts of things in a much more heightened way. And I think there's going to be much to do in the future for that. And it could be really cool to go on a month-long retreat without technology to a place where technology doesn't exist. And I think it'll be quite an experience for those who have actually started and grown up and only ever had these technologies. And, they might even learn how to drive, because in the future, you won't even need to know how to do that.
I can't wait for that.
I will ask you for some final thoughts. I know we're getting to time. And so the question is, it's now 20 years in the future. It's the year 2042. You've just woken up. Based on our conversation, what does the world look like? Christina?
In relation to drowning? Are we still on the drowning?
All the stuff we've been talking about this morning.
So nobody drowns in 20 years' time, in 2042. Because we have a great respect for the ocean and for all the gifts that it gives us as well. We are very well trained. We use technology. There are actually technology signals on the water that will alert us when it's not safe to go in the water. I think we will understand and be able to navigate the tides much better, even much better than we do now. And we'll be able to find people, because of all the technology, the sensors, everything that we've been discussing this morning, much easier. So prevention will be better. Nobody will drown because everybody will be learned. Everyone will have respect. And in the odd case where we do need to send in a rescue, we'll have all the signals beaming in all the right places, and the drones will be able to carry more than 50 kilos.
Andrew?
Love it. Similar sort of thought. Wake up in the morning, my tech tells me, Andrew, go for a swim, but go over here because it's calmer over here. Don't need to learn how to read the rips and all those sorts of things. Can get in there. Andrew, you're getting too close to the boundaries. Move back. I get back. Never have to think of the dangers and risks, because we don't know anyone who's drowned, because we're nudged to make the right decisions. and we move on happily with our day.
I love it. For me, in 20 years' time, I think about the way that first responders actually respond. And so whether it be a natural disaster or just everyday life, like a flood or just someone struggling in a pool or in the ocean, that we have the technology to be able to prevent that. And I think about those young people under the age of 24 that have a disproportionate percentage and being the main cause of death, being drowning, that is completely shifted and changed. And I think about the reliance that we have on technology and the education side of things. And I think that we live in this really nice balance with the technology where we're super aware, we know different options, we're able to augment just being able to read a rip and not going swimming in the wrong spot in the ocean and whatnot. So I think the ability to communicate through, whether it be wearables or visual recognition software, that deaths will just reduce, accidental deaths will reduce. And I think of that day when death becomes optional for most people because the sickness is optional and we don't have these accidents, and we can go out and we can live our lives to the fullest without the risk. With that, we all live happily ever after, and I will wrap us up for this Friday morning. And thank you both for joining me for the conversation. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Christina. Thank you, Hayley, for getting us live on LinkedIn, and for everyone who's watching us, joining us here live on LinkedIn, on social media, or in our online learning community. I love hearing your thoughts after these conversations. So please reach out and have a very safe and wonderful day.
Have a good
Thank
day,
you.
everyone.